أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين وخاتم النبيين سيدنا ونبينا وشفيع ذنوبنا وطبيب قلوبنا بالقاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين الغر الميامين المعصومين من يومنا هذا إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى في كتابه المجيد وخطابه المتين وهو أصدق القائلين وقوله الحق. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن هذا القرآن يهدي للتي هي أقوم. صلوات Muhammad. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the all-wise, did not create this universe in vain. There is divine purpose behind the creation of this universe and everything within it. It has a purpose to fulfill. And when there is divine purpose behind any action, then the design of that action or the design of that product would be in line with the purpose it intends to fulfill. And not having ma'rifah, not having awareness, not knowing the purpose or why certain things are created can lead to objections into why this is done in this way and why this was created in this manner. If some of you had walked into this hall thinking that there is going to be a soccer game going on, and you looked at this seating arrangement, you would have objected. Why are the seats in this manner? Why is there no soccer field? Why is there no referee? Why would this question arise? Because you failed to understand the purpose behind why this has been set up. Similarly, those who object to the creation of the universe and the irregularities which they think they discovered in the universe, it is primarily because of the fact that they failed to understand why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has set up this universe. Had been known why Allah had set up this universe, they would not have objected. This universe has not been set up as a place where you will find absolute comfort and absolute happiness. This is not how this dunya is designed. In one of the Hadith-e-Qudsi that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taught when He was talking to Hazrat Musa alayhi salatu wassalam, He said Allah said people are looking for happiness in this world, they will not find it here. Because I have placed happiness, absolute happiness, in the hereafter. People are looking it in this dunya. They will never find it. And it lists 5 other things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed and how people are looking for them elsewhere and that they will never find it. For example, one of the things, I have placed the istijabat of dua, the acceptance of prayers in rizq halal. People are looking for it elsewhere, in duas and in shouting and in crying and tears. But the principal ingredient for acceptance of dua is rizq halal, pure halal, tayyib food. And that is why in one of the statements of Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wasalam on the day of Ashura, Please write a salawat. Salli ala Muhammad. On the day of Ashura, when Imam Hussain before, at one point before he went out for his final attack, he addressed the enemy and he admonished them, he advised them, but there was no response. On the contrary, they hurled a stone at him which hit his forehead and he started to bleed. When he returned back to his sister, and his sister asked him, "Did you not introduce yourself? Did you not advise them? Did you not admonish them?" And the response he gave, "Yes, I did. But what can I do? Muli'at butunuhum min al-haram." Their tummies are full of haram food. So if one's stomach is full of haram food, then someone like Imam Hussain ﷺ, even his words would not have any effect on that person. These are some of the sunnahs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, some of the principles of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through which He has laid out this world. And they are the formulas through which this universe works. We talked about some of the sunnahs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the previous years. And then there is a hierarchy of sunnahs. So I'll not go into that. So one of the principles, one of the divine purposes of the creation of this world is ibtala, is trial, tribulation, to test us. And we had one ashra on that as well. And building on top of that, the reason why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tests us and why He's created this universe in order to test us is to provide us the opportunity to grow. Because He did not create us for this dunya. He created us for the hereafter. And in order to earn our hereafter, we are in this dunya. So He designed this dunya to be in a way that this dunya will be full of problems. You walk into an examination hall, you will be handed over an examination paper. It will have problems. Every one of us in this world have a set of problems to solve. My question paper is different than your question paper. And this again goes back to the adalat and justice of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that He did not set a single question paper for everyone. In this world, when you go to the universities to give an exam, everybody gets the same question paper. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not do that. It is out of His wisdom and infinite justice that everybody is given a different set of problems. That is in accordance with his intellectual and academic and physical strength. And that again goes back to the justice of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There was one student in the Dars Kharaj of one of the ulama, and they were complaining about the problems that they had in their lives. So the alim invited all of his students to a field. And as you have all been complaining about the troubles and difficulties you have in your life, write all your problems on a piece of paper. Everybody wrote their problems in a piece of paper. And they said, all of them, throw your papers in this bucket. He said, well, this bucket now has so many hundreds of papers with a set of problems. Now everybody come forward and pick a piece of paper. And tell me, are you willing to exchange your set of problems with the set of problems that are written on this piece of paper? They all said, no, we are happy with the set of problems. That we have somebody suffering from cancer, somebody's suffering from bad marriage, somebody's suffering from the tarbiyat of their children, from other losses in life, financial. Everybody is given a different set of problems. This is how this dunya has been created, and we need to understand that, we need to realize that. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created, when there is an examination going on, when there is a trial that is going on, when there is a problem there are problems that we all need to solve, it is important that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends us a text that will have the solutions to those problems. We need to find the solutions to our problems in the text that the Creator has provided. Otherwise, again, it would be an objection to His infinite wisdom that He has given us a set of problems without the solution to those problems. And He has revealed that text through the final messenger to all of mankind, so that we can read, understand, and implement those solutions in our lives, so we can solve those problems. One of the beautiful statements regarding the Quran, the Imam says, "Ki ayatul Quran khaza'in." The verses of the Quran are like treasures. He did not say every verse of the Holy Quran is a treasure. A more closer meaning, a more closer translation would be, the verses of the Quran are like treasure chests. فَكُلَّمَا فُتِحَتْ آيَةٌ. So whenever an ayah or whenever a treasure chest is opened, it befits a moment that he sees what it holds. Every ayat of the Holy Quran is a treasure chest that holds within itself many different pearls. And each pearl is enough to solve many different problems of our life. But unfortunately, we have not engaged with the Quran in this manner. We have limited, and this happens with all blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are like that. If we fail to recognize and value a blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we are liable to waste it and not fully benefit from that blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It all goes back to understanding and valuing that blessing. I've given this example many times. If you give a mobile device to a 2-month-old baby, what would it do with it? It will chew on it, it will toss it around and waste it. But when the same device is given to a grown-up man or woman, what does he or she do with it? You'll buy a protector, you'll buy a screen protector for it. And you'll use it carefully. Why? What is the difference? Why does this child toss it around, and why did this person use it carefully? Because this person had the ma'rifah, had the awareness, had the understanding. He valued this blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So whenever we fail to recognize a blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we are likely to lose that blessing. It has been mentioned, one of the most precious jewels was once found in the hands of children. They were tossing that stone around and playing with it, and a jeweler happened to pass by who knew the value of that jewel, of that pearl. And he said to them, would it not be better if you played with a football rather than this stone? Why don't you exchange this stone for a football? And they were happy. And they exchanged that precious stone for a football. And they're excited about it. What a beautiful deal we have done. And that stone is currently placed in one of the museums of the world. It can happen that if we are unaware of the value of a blessing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given it, be it in the form of religion of Islam, be it in the form of the Holy Quran, be it in the form of the love of Ahlul Bayt, if we do not value that blessing, it is possible that we would be willing to replace that, exchange that with a different way of life than what the constitution of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us, and actually be happy about it. It is possible that can happen. Shukr of this ni'mat cannot happen until one values and knows that it is a blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Beautiful statement from Imam Sadiq alayhi salatu wassalam. addressing Hisham, one of his favorite students. And a beautiful statement, such a statement that is a key statement, that is a golden principle that can be applied to a lot of places, and one can seek guidance from this statement. He says, Ya Hisham, O Hisham, if you have a walnut in your hand, and the entire world says that this is a pearl, and you know that it is a walnut, it will not hurt you, because you know that this is a walnut. And if you have a pearl in your hand and the entire world says that this is a walnut, and you know that this is a pearl, then their statement is not going to hurt you either. Valuing the blessing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us. The Quran is a blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We need to value it, and valuing the Quran can only come when we understand it and we are aware of what it holds. It is not a book only to be read for sawab. The Quran does not introduce itself in that manner. In the coming days, one of the exercises that we would go through is to look at some of the messages of the Holy Quran. The Holy Quran is full of certain key principles that if we can adhere to them in our lives, it can be a life changer for us. And some of the verses are so precise and compact that they need to be printed as a sticker and distributed. Lima taquluna ma la taf'alun. Why do you say what you do not do? This is the message of the Quran. Lima taquluna. Why do you say ma la taf'alun, that you do not do? If we were to, this is such a precise and compact statement that this needs to be printed and distributed and posted on your windscreen of your car or house, and it needs to be spread. This message needs to be spread. This is the message of the Holy Quran, which has universal attachment, universal attraction, and not limited to only one or two or three different aspects of our life, in all aspects of our life. Be it marriage, be it war, be it honesty, be it the tarbiyat of your children, all aspects of, be it unity among the different factions, be it unity among the different religions, the Quran has something to say. In inviting the different faiths towards unity, the Quran has done that and has advised us how to invite others. The beautiful verse in the Holy Quran, we'll talk about that. When it comes to one of the verses of the Holy Quran, when it talks about war, it says, Kutiba alaykumul qital, war has been prescribed and written on you, or made wajib on you, wa huwa kurhun lakum, while you detest it. There are a lot of things that we detest, but in essence they are better for us. The Holy Quran says, and this again is a principle of the Holy Quran. Kutiba alaykumul qital, war has been prescribed on you, has been written for you. Wa huwa kurhun lakum, while you detest it. And then the golden principle comes. Wa asa an takrahu shay'a wa huwa khairun lakum. Beautiful. It is possible that you might dislike something while that thing is khair for you. And it doesn't stop here. Wa asa an tuhibbu shay'a wa huwa sharrun lakum. And it is possible that you might love something while it is shar for you. And then again, on top of that, the icing on the top. Wallahu ya'lamu wa antum la ta'lamun. Allah knows it and you do not know. Salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allah knows it and you do not know. Three very important statements. You might dislike something, well, that is good for you or best for you. You might love something or you might desire something, and that would be shar for you. Wallahu ya'lam, Allah knows it while you do not know. These three principles can change the way we think and we look at problems in life. There are certain phrases in the Holy Quran that are repeated more than once. The Holy Quran was not supposed to be a multi-volume book. So there was only certain phrases, certain number of ayahs that Allah intended to reveal. And within that limited number of words that were to be revealed, repeating a phrase points to the significance of that phrase. There are certain phrases or certain concepts that are repeated more than 11 times. That would point out to the importance of that message. Inna shaytana lakum aduwwum mubin. Shaitan is your manifest, open enemy. More than 11 times. This verse, you might like something while it is shar for you, and you might dislike something while it is khair for you. You find it in another verse of the Holy Quran. And it was in what context? I was in Tabligh in one of the months of Ramadan, and a person comes to me, and I think most of you can relate to this. And he came to me with this question. He said, Maulana, what do you think about istikhara? And I said, what happened? He said, well, I did an istikhara for marriage. It came out to be very good. But my life is not what I was expecting it to be. So when you do an istikhara, what do you do? Talab, or what do you want from God? Istikhara by itself means asking khair from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? And I was studying these verses. The second part of the second place in the Holy Quran where this verse is mentioned, and I'll connect these two, is when the Holy Quran talks about spouses and divorce, and then treat your wives in a good manner. The Holy Quran says, Surah Nisa verse 19, Ashiruhunna bil ma'ruf. Treat your wives in an amicable way, in a ma'ruf way, in what is considered to be good. And then the second line, why? The Holy Quran says, فَإِن كَرَحْتُمُوهُنَّ. For if you dislike them, فَعَسَىٰ أَن تَكْرَهُوا شَيْئًا وَيَجْعَلَ اللَّهُ فِيهِ خَيْرًا كَثِيرًا. It is possible that you might dislike something while Allah has placed in it khayr kasir for you. You might treat your spouses amicably. It is possible that you might dislike them, but Allah has placed khair kasir in that. So when you are asking for khair from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for marriage, it does not necessarily mean that your life is going to be heaven. It means you're asking Allah for khair in that. And khair is compatible with you disliking something. The Holy Quran says it is possible that you might dislike something while Allah has put khair kasir in it. So it is possible that we might have spouses that we are not happy with. They're not the ideal spouse we wanted. But again, this dunya is not something where you are going to get your ideals. To strive for ideal in this dunya is a mistake. It's a mistake. So look at how this verse can change the framework, your view, how you view your problems. And this can become the basis of Islamic marriage counseling. In the West, when the spouses go to the counselors and discuss their problem, the first thing or one of the first approaches that the counselors would take, well, if you don't like each other, why are you living together? That is a destructive approach. Look at the approach that the Quran has taken. Asa an takrahu shay'a wa huwa khairun lakum. It is possible that you might not like each other while you're best for each other. Through these problems and through these difficulties, you are going to accomplish, you are going to grow, you are going to accomplish while you have been sent in this world. Through the challenges the spouses are going to provide to each other. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So the Quran is full of such messages which are so critical that if we adopt them in our lives, they would be game changers for us. One such message was this message. You might dislike something. Another message, I'll just quickly point it out, and inshallah we'll talk about that in the coming days. Talking about a battle that was about to happen between Jalut and Talut. One of the soldiers or one of the groups from the Mu'mineen of Talut's army said a statement which the Quran narrates. And again, that is a game changer if we understand the diversity and the depth of the statement. It says, Kam min a'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. When they looked at the enemy and they were aware that the enemy is huge and outnumbers them, they said, Kam min fi'atin qalilatin ghalabat fi'atan kathira. How many group of small people have overcome a group that is larger than them? Bi-iznillah, with the izn of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So in the Islamic framework, when it comes to a battle or war, it is not numerical number that counts. Kam min fi'atin qalila, kitne hi chote fi'a groups the that overpowered fi'atan kathira. Those groups that were large in number. So numerical numbers don't count. Again, Quran is giving us the way of thinking that we need to use as guiding principles when it comes to taking important decisions. Bi-iznillah, with the izn of Allah. Wallahu ma'as sabirin. Allah is with the sabirin. Again, an important message that in order to benefit from this key principle of the Holy Quran, you have to be with the sabirin. You have to exercise sabr. In order to, if you want to increase our blessings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us, again the Quran comes to our rescue and gives us a key ayah, a key verse, a key principle which can be used to increase the blessings that Allah has already given you. And most of you might already know it by heart. It has been commonly used. And what is that verse? لَإِن شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ. If you do shukr, we're going to increase you in that neema, in that blessing. So if you want a blessing to be increased, you have to exercise shukr. And then it continues, وَإِن كَفَرْتُمْ. Okay, if you do kufr, if you hide that blessing, what is the shukr of a blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Shukr kaise kiya jata hai? How is shukr done of a blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And how is kufr done? You must have heard this word, shukran-e-ne'mat and kufran-e-ne'mat. Right? So shukr of a ni'mat is to use that ni'mat in the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to use it. That is shukr of ni'mat. He's given you wealth. He wants you to spend that wealth in the way He has advised you to, on your family, on yourself, in the betterment of the poor, uplift of the poor in the society. Using your blessing, He has given you intellect. It should be in the service of Islam, not in the service of the enemies of Islam. He has given you physical strength. It should be in the service of Islam. And the service of Islam is limited to battles. No. You have physical strength, you can help the poor, you can use that ni'mat in a way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants it. The beautiful statement from Dua Kumail, and most of you, alhamdulillah, must have read that, and if you have paid attention to the translation. And this verse is something that should be pasted in all of the gyms that we have, in all the exercise centers that there are. In Dua Kumail, you find the statement, قَوِّ عَلَىٰ خِدْمَتِكَ جَوَارَهِ. A dua of Amirul Mu'minin alayhi salatu wassalam, please recite salawat. Praying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, قَوِّ عَلَىٰ خِدْمَتِكَ جَوَارَهِ. Strengthen my bodily parts so that they can be in your service. If you want to go to gym, you want to exercise, you want to be a bodybuilder, do it. But with this intention. قَوِّ عَلَىٰ خِدْمَتِكَ جَوَارَهِ. This would be shukr of that ni'mat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And hiding that ni'mat, not spending it where it should be spent, is kufran ni'mat. And if one does kufran ni'mat, Allah will, the verse says, inna azabi la shadid, that my azab is severe. Hiding the ni'mat of Allah means that azab will come. And using that ni'mat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the way it should be spent, Allah says, لَإِن شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ. So if we had resorted, if we had adopted shukr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the way Allah wants us, it is not limited to just writing Haza min Fazl Rabbi on the top of our stores and in our cars and our buildings. Amirul Mu'minin alayhi salatu wassalam, please recite salawat. Once visited one of his companions, and he had a huge house. And the Imam turned to him and said, well, you were more in need of this spacious house in the hereafter than in this dunya. You were more in need of this house in the hereafter. And he said, well, now that you have this space, then use it in the way of Allah. By entertaining guests and those who are travelers, and if they need to stay a day or two in the city, and you know them or you trust them, and you can have them over. You have a basement, you have a big hall, you can use it for different purposes. So any blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He has given us needs to be spent in that purpose that Allah wants from us. And one of the biggest blessings that Allah has given us is our intellect, is our aql, your intelligence. Is another blessing. It has to be spent understanding the Quran. One of the reasons why aql has been given to us is to understand His religion and Quran. And if we do that, Allah is going to increase it. There's a story in Al-Kafi where, and again those stories that are narrated by our Imams have multiple lessons in it. It says that there was a couple, the husband was that kind of a person. He was rajulun abidun. The statement says rajulun abidun, and abid, a person who worshipped Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but unfortunately whatever he started, whatever business he started, he would always see loss in that. There are people like you set up a store for them, or you set up a business for them, and they're not able to run it. Again, that is a test of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the other spouse who has to live with such a person. It's not easy. But again, this is a test for that person. And so the wife had to look after the financial needs, and she would spend on this person till poverty came to a level that there was nothing left at home. All she could find was one string. So she gave that string to this person. The story is narrated in Al-Kafi, and saying to him that this is all that is left with me. Go and sell this and see what you can find, and bring it home, and we'll cook and we'll eat. So he goes to the store, to the bazaar, to the shop, and to the market to sell that. And when he reached there, as bad luck always followed him. When he reached the store, it was time for the store. The stores were closing, so people were leaving. And he stayed there for a while, and soon everything was closed, and there was nobody to buy anything from him. So he said to himself, so let me go to the seashore and do wuzu and pray. And he was an abid person, and pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he went to the seashore. And while he was there, he saw this fisherman who had spread his net. And all that fisherman could catch from the sea was a fish that nobody would be interested in. A fish that nobody would be interested in. So he stood there for a while looking at the fisherman. The fisherman was looking at his fish, and who would be interested in buying this fish. So he said to that fisherman, he said, I have a string that you might probably use it in your net. So take this and sell me the fish. So the deal was done, and he takes the fish and brings it back to home and gives it to his wife to cook. And the wife opened the fish. There was a pearl in the stomach of the fish. So she was excited. She brings it to the husband and says, go and sell this. Again, giving it to somebody, bad luck follows this person. Go and sell this and see what happens. So he goes and sells that for 2,000 dirhams, so 2 bags of 1,000 coins, silver coins. He comes home excited, gives it, puts both of them on the table, and tells his wife, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us. And while they were having this discussion, there was a knock at the door. And the person, who is it? Come in. And he enters, and he said, I'm a miskeen. Is there anyone who can help a miskeen? And this person, this abid person, he said, well, take one of the bags. Take one of the bags. And while he took that bag and left, the wife, taunted him, saying, you let go of half of our luxury. Aadha hamara asaish ko tumne, you let it go. Right? So sometimes, he was a rajulun abid, but he could not fulfill the financial needs of his household, but he was more aware here of what shukr really meant. That he was willing to part with half of the wealth that Allah had given him. But the wife was not, to some extent, that she said this statement, Zahabta bin nisfi, you let go of half of our asaish, of our luxury. As they were having this discussion, there was again another knock. He said, come in, and the same person came in with that sack of silver coins, saying, I was an angel from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to test you whether you are one of the shakireen or one of the kafirin. And by giving me half of your gold or your silver coins, you have shown that you were from the shakireen, and I have come back to return your half gold, your sack that you have given me. He left that sack and left. La azidannakum, la in shakartum, la azidannakum. The principle, the golden principle that the Quran teaches us here, if you do shukr of the ni'mat, in order to do shukr of the ni'mat, we need to understand and realize and recognize the ni'mat. Without recognizing the ni'mat, we cannot do shukr of that ni'mat. If we understand the importance of religion in our lives, if we understand the importance of Quran in our lives, then the shukr of our intellect would be to spend time using our intellect, understanding the Quran, understanding our religion, understanding and implementing it in our lives. And all the blessings that Allah has given you. There's a beautiful set of traditions, inshallah, if time permits, we'll go over them in some of the sessions, which starts with this line, Ya'ti ala nase zamanun. A time will come on people. And then it describes what will be the situation in those times and what our responsibility would be in that time. And one of those very short statements, Ya'ti ala nasi zamanun, a time will come on people, man sa'ala asha, wa man sakata mata. A time will come on people, whoever asks will survive, and whoever stays silent will die. It can be interpreted in many ways, but one obvious way, one obvious interpretation is a time will come on people where poverty would be so widespread that those who do not beg will die. And those who will ask, who will beg, will survive. And I think we're not far in certain parts of the world from this reality. And then Imam says that if you happen to be in one of those times, then use your wealth to support them. And if you do not, and then the person asks a question, well, if I do not have the wealth to support these people, the message that the Imam gave, I'm not doing an exact translation right now, the message that the Imam gave, well, if you have an abru, if you have a status, then use your status to secure financial support for them. Maybe you can ask somebody to help them. You don't have the means to help them, but you can have someone else. You have an abru, you have an izzat in society, you have a social status that you might ask someone to help them. And that again ends up being one of our responsibilities. We'll continue with this topic, inshallah, in the coming days, and I will leave all of you tonight with this important message that without recognizing a blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we will not be able to benefit from that blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And those who did recognize religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as a blessing, the Holy Quran as a blessing, were willing to give up everything they had, including their lives, to preserve and protect those blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It became easier for them to give up their lives and sacrifice their lives and whatever they had. Why? Because they had valued and they knew the importance of Quran and the religion of Islam. That is why we commemorate and mourn the tragedy of Karbala. The message that we need to learn is that Islam is so important that even someone like Imam Hussein is willing to sacrifice himself for the preservation and protection of Islam. You do not sacrifice yourself for something that is of lesser value than what is being sacrificed. You use your wealth to save your health, because health is valuable than wealth. Imam is sacrificing his life. For what? To save religion, to save Tawheed, to save the message of the Holy Prophet that holds within it the solutions to all of the problems of mankind for all times to come. This message, if lost, would result in the loss of the efforts of all the prophets, from Adam alayhi salatu wasalam to the Khatam. So he had to sacrifice himself to protect that message. And when Muharram would come, we see our Imams starting the morning right from the 1st of Muharram. Even though the Shahadas, all these Shahadas took place on the 10th of Muharram. Generally, commemorations and mournings happen on the day the Shaheed leaves this world. But with Karbala, the tragedy, we mourn the tragedy from the 1st of Muharram. A person came to the Imam with this very same question. Why is it that in daily life we see people commemorating the Shaheed when he passes away from this world, when he leaves this world, when he becomes a martyr, whereas with Karbala and Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wasalam, you start the commemorations right from the 1st of Muharram. The Imam gave an irfani answer. He said, when the 1st of Muharram comes, the angels in the heavens, they spread the dress of Imam Hussain that is stained in blood, and have the cuts of the swords in different places. The angels spread that cloth of Imam Hussain in the skies, and the mu'mineen in this dunya, because of their connection with Imam Hussain, they're able to feel that and they're able to see that, and tears start rolling down from their eyes. So before we start Muharram in this dunya, the angels have already started Azadari the hereafter, in the heavens, in that realm. The Imams, in one of the traditions, one of the Imams say that when the 1st of Muharram would come, when the month of Muharram would come, nobody would see my dad smiling during the entire month of Muharram. Smiling is over. They would have a sad face. They would remember the event of Karbala, and they would not only remember, they would remind others of the event of Karbala. After the tragedy of Karbala, Imam Sajjad alayhi salatu wasalam, for how many years he lived, if he was passing by and there happened to be a butcher's shop, he would stop. There would be a slaughtered animal, he would ask, did you give it water before you slaughtered it? The butcher would say, it is only humane to do that. Why would I not give it water? My heart says the Imam would have turned to Karbala. Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. But my father was slaughtered in the manner that he was thirsty. This happened so many times that when the Imam would be approaching a butcher's shop, the butchers would cover the meat with a piece of cloth so that the Imam would not see those slaughtered animals. Imam Baqir alayhi salatu wasalam, who was present in Karbala, and he witnessed all of what was going on in his lifetime when the month of Muharram would come, and if he would find a poet or a reciter who would recite the Marsiya and Masaib of Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wasalam, he would invite the reciter, he would invite the members of his family. The males would sit in one corner and the females would sit in the other corner. A curtain would be hanged, and he would ask the reciter to recite the musibat of the Imam. How can someone recite the musibat of Imam Hussain in front of the Imam, who himself is an eyewitness to all of the tragedies of Karbala? When this reciter would be shy and he would read the Messiah with shyness, the Imam would say, no, don't read like this. Read in the manner that you read in public, with emotions, full of emotions. Apne pure hejan aur shaur ke saath padho. And then he would encourage the poets and the reciters to recite in a manner. The message of Karbala had to be delivered, and the vessel was Azadari. The vessel was these tears that would carry the message from one generation to the next. In the time of Imam Riza alayhi salatu wasalam, one of his companions, Shabib ibn Rayyan, he comes to see the Imam on the 1st of Muharram, and the Imam introduces to him this 1st of Muharram, this day that we just passed. He said, Yabna Shabib, Anta Sa'imun, are you fasting? He said, no. He said, Yabna Shabib, O son of Shabib. First of Muharram is the day in which Hazrat Zakaria prayed to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for a zurriyatan tayyiba, for a pure progeny. And Allah accepted his dua. And the angels called out to him while he was praying in Mihrab, Inna Allah yubashshiruka bi Yahya. Allah gives you the glad tidings of Yahya. And then he says, again, a spiritual tonic, a spiritual cure, a spiritual remedy for those who are childless and looking for children. He says, whoever fasts on the 1st of Muharram and prays to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah will accept his prayers in the same way he accepted the prayers of Hazrat Zakaria. And then he introduces the holy month of Muharram in a very painful introduction. He says, this month of Muharram is the month that even in the days of Jahiliyyah, the people of Jahiliyyah, in the days of ignorance, they used to respect this holy month and they would put down their arms and stop injustice because of the sanctity of this holy month. But the ummah of the Holy Prophet, the statement of the Imam, he says, but the ummah of this Holy Prophet did not observe the sanctity of this month, nor did they observe the sanctity of their Holy Prophet. For it was in this month that they slaughtered the progeny of the Holy Prophet, and they captivated their women and children, and they looted their property. Ma ghafarallahu lakum dhalik abada. The Imam said, Allah is never going to forget them forever. Allah is never going to forget them. Then the Imam turns to Shabib and says, Ibn Shabib, in kunta bakiyan li shay'in fabki lil Husayn ibn Ali ibn Abi Talib. Ibn Shabib, if you ever feel like crying, you should cry over Husayn ibn Ali ibn Abi Talib. فَإِنَّهُ ذُبِهَا كَمَا يُذْبَهُ الْكَبْشُ. For verily he was slaughtered just like a ram, just as a ram is slaughtered. Imam is comparing the slaughtering of Imam Hussain ﷺ with the slaughtering of a ram. When the ram is slaughtered, it's generally slaughtered from the front. But it is said in the narrations where the Imam was slaughtered, he was not slaughtered from the front, he was slaughtered from the back. So why is the Imam comparing the slaughtering of Imam Hussain with the slaughtering of the ram? One possible answer that the ulama have given is that when a ram is being slaughtered, no one stops to ask, what wrong has it done? Why are you slaughtering this ram? What wrong has it done? In the same way, in the day of Ashura, when Imam Hussain was being slaughtered and no one was left, the ummah had gathered around Imam Hussain. There was no one who stood to say, what is his fault? What wrong has he done? Why are you slaughtering the grandson of the Holy Prophet? Why are you slaughtering the person whom the Holy Prophet loved so much that he would hold him on his shoulders and carry him around on his shoulders? Why are you slaughtering the person whom the Holy Prophet used to kiss when he was a child? Nobody stood up to ask this question. Yes, there was someone who stood up to ask this question. It was Lady Zainab Salamullah Alaiha, who was seeing at a distance, and she called by names. She even called Umar Saad, Yabna Saad, Kya Qiyamat hai? Qutila Abu Abdullah wa anta tanzuru ilayk. Abu Abdullah is being slaughtered, Umar ibn Saad, and you're going to just look at it, you're not going to do anything. And there was no response that came from Umar ibn Saad except that he turned his face away and he started to cry. And the Imam ﷺ continues with the introduction of this holy month, and he says, if you, Ibn Shabib, if you ever feel like crying over something, then cry over Husayn ibn Ali ibn Abi Talib. فَإِنَّهُ ذُبِهَا كَمَا يُذْبَهُ الْكَبْشُ. For he was slaughtered just as a ram is slaughtered. وَقُتِلَ مَعَهُ مِنْ أَهْلِ بَيْتِهِ ثَمَانِيَةَ عَشَرَ رَجُلًا. And along with him, 18 of his family members were martyred. Such family members, the likes of which the world has never seen. These were the members of the family of the Ahlul Bayt that was slaughtered. The Imam continues that the 7 skies and the 7 earth wept over Imam Hussein. 4,000 angels descended from the sky for the nusrat of Imam Hussein ﷺ, only to find that Imam Hussein has been slaughtered. They find that Imam Hussein is laying on the plains of Karbala and his head has been raised on the spears. These angels did not ascend back to the skies. They are still there in Karbala. They do the tawaf of the haram of Imam Hussein every day. They pray for the Zairin who come to visit the haram of Imam Hussein. Even today they are there waiting for the 12th Imam to reappear so they could be in the ranks of the 12th Imam to avenge the shahadat of Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wassalam. Ala lanatullahi ala al-qawm al-zalimin.